Hello Year 3, this is your English video for today. Now, yesterday we read quite a bit of Stig of the Dump. Today what we're going to do, we're only going to read 10 pages, so it's not that long of a video, don't worry. Then what we're going to do, we are going to be looking at the events that happened in that section of the chapter 4, called Gone A-Hunting. And then what we're going to do, we are going to be writing about those events once we've put them in order. But that will be on the next video. So, let's read a little bit. Lou had gone hunting. The North Kent foxhounds were meeting near Grandmother's house that day, and a neighbour had offered to take Lou along and look after her. Grandmother had not been sure, but Lou had insisted that there was the pony, and she knew how to ride, so why wouldn't she? When the morning came, it was pouring with rain, as it had been for days. But Lou said that hunting people didn't take any notice of the weather. So she had gone clattering off on the pony with the other riders, splashing through the puddles in the lane. Barney thought she looked a bit smug, but maybe it was just the rain trickling down her neck that made her turn her nose up. Barney stood on the window, looking at the weeping grey clouds. "I'll take you in the car if you like, Barney," said his grandmother. "We could follow along the lanes." "No," said Barney. "Thank you," he added. "You'd rather just amuse yourself, dear?" Barney nodded. He wandered off through the gloomy house, feeling sorry for himself. A cat saw him coming, and must have seen the expression on his face, and into the back kitchen where it had shot into the broom cupboard. Barney went after it, but when he got to the broom cupboard, he remembered something. Yes, there among the brooms and mops and feather dusters was Stig's spear. He untangled it from all the other handles and brought it out into the light. He gave it a rub with a duster and a flint blade glinted. He shook it and the smooth wooden shaft quivered. It was a real hunting spear, there was no doubt about that, and Barney's face suddenly lightened. Lou wasn't the only one who could go hunting. Barney looked at the wintry sky. Hunting people didn't take any notice of the weather, he thought. All the same, since nobody had told him he ought to, he decided to put on his rubber boots and mackintosh and sou'wester hat. He felt like a whaler with a harpoon. He squelched through the empty paddock and into the dripping copse. He was glad to see that there was a wisp of smoke coming from Stig's end of the pit, and a smell of wood smoke hung about the copse. He went round to the entrance of the pit. At the bottom there was a lake of rainwater with old cans and light bulbs floating sadly around in it. But Stig was there in his den, sitting quite contentedly by a cheerful fire. He looked alarmed at first, not recognising Barney in all this rainwear, but as soon as he saw Barney's face under the sou'wester, he grinned. "Hello, Stig," he called. "Would you like to come hunting with me?" Stig went on grinning, but made no move. "Hunting, Stig," urged Barney. "Foxes! Seek 'em out, Stig!" Barney made a fierce stabbing motion with the spear and galloping movements in his rubber boots, and even imitated a hunting horn. "Ta-ra, ta-ra, ta-ra!" Stig started to look excited, but he was still puzzled. Barney took off his hat and scratched his head. How was he to explain to Stig about the meat of the foxhounds, and how he had wanted them to join in? He looked at the drawings on the wall of the cave, and he gave them an idea. He put down the spear and picked up the charred stick. "Look, Stig," he said, "fox," and he carefully did his best drawing of a fox on the wall on the cave. Stig looked alarmed, if anything, but Barney went on drawing. "Hounds, Stig," he said. Stig's eyes grew very big and round, but his face did not yet show that he understood what it was all about. "Crackers," thought Barney. "I'll have to draw the horses now." But Stig had already drawn some horses, so he only knew he had to copy. He was rather pleased with his horse, and at last Stig seemed to understand. "I'll have to put someone riding the horse," thought Barney. "I'll do Lou. There's the reins, and there's the riding stick." There was something about this human figure actually on top of the animal that really seemed to excite Stig. His eyes blazed and he jumped up and seized his best bow and a handful of arrows, and looked hopefully at Barney like a dog that knows it's going to be taken out on an exciting walk. "Good old Stig," cried Barney. "That's the idea. Come on, let's go." and without even thinking of putting on any extra clothes against the wintry weather, Stig danced out into the rain, and Barney with him. From the deep in the distant woods came the toot of a hunting horn. Barney and Stig set off across the country towards it, down the muddy cart track that tunnelled into the woods and into the fir plantation. As they trod softly over the carpet of fallen fir needles, Stig suddenly stiffened and raised his brow. Barney looked up. At the top of the fir tree was a squirrel, stripping a fir cone. Barney pulled Stig's arm. "Don't fool about, Stig," he said. "It's foxes we're supposed to be hunting, not squirrels. Come on, or we'll never find the hunt." The squirrel shook its tail, ran to the end of the branch, and sprang into the next tree, where it disappeared. Stig looked a bit annoyed, but he lowered his bow, and they went on their way. They came to a woodland of tall trees, sweet chestnut trees and oaks. As they came near one of the oak trees, Stig dropped to the ground and began crawling carefully forward. "What is it, Stig?" said Barney in a loud whisper. "Is it a fox?" "Where's Stig? I can't see anything." Without looking round, Stig waved his hand as if he wanted Barney to get down too. He dropped to his hands and knees onto a bramble. "Ouch!" yelped Barney. "It's prickly!" And as he did so, a flock of 6, 12, no, it must have been more than 20 wood pigeons sprang into the air and flew off with a great beating of wings, every one of them stuffed with fallen acorns which they had been gorging. Stig let loose an arrow into the flying flock, but somehow failed to hit anything. "Oh, sorry, Stig," said Barney. "I didn't know it was pigeons. Still, we're not supposed to be hunting pigeons, you know. People don't. When they go fox hunting, they don't take any notice of anything else." But this time there was such a fierce scowl on Stig's face that Barney began to feel almost afraid of him. They walked in silence down a woodland track which held great pools of rainwater. Stig splashed through them, without seeming to care how muddy his legs were getting. Barney waded more slowly behind, rather worried that the water might come over the tops of his boots. He saw Stig fit another arrow and raise his bow again. Across the track ahead strutted a proud cock pheasant, and before he knew it, it was happening. Stig's flinted-tipped arrow struck. With a pounce, Stig picked up a body of a pheasant, pulled the arrow out, and stuck the pheasant behind him into his girdle. The long brown feathers wagged as if it had sprouted a tail as he walked on. But Barney was not at all happy about killing this pheasant. It was bound to be poaching, or the wrong time of year, or not sporting to shoot them except with a real gun and cartridges or something. It would have been better to stick to squirrels and wood pigeons, but he did not say anything this time. The tootling of the horn was getting nearer now, and there were crashings in thickets and a voice of huntsmen encouraging the hounds. Stig stopped and looked about him, and Barney ran and caught up with him. "It's the hunt, Stig," he said. "There must be foxes here somewhere. Keep a good lookout and we might see one." The crashing and the voicing seemed quite close, and Barney suddenly thought that perhaps the huntsmen would be angry if they found them in the middle of the wood, especially with the poached pheasant. There was a bank with a sort of little cave under the exposed roots of a beech tree, and Barney pulled Stig into this. As they lay there hidden, they both sniffed. There was a strong and peculiar smell hanging about the place. They lay there and waited. Barney tried to crawl backwards as far down the hole in the bank that he could. "That's funny," he muttered. "Somebody's put sticks in here." In the mouth of what seemed to be a large rabbit burrow were fixed three stakes of hazelwood, so that no animal that was bigger than a mouse could possibly get in or out. To pass the time, Barney kicked and worried about the stakes until he got them loose. And then they cleaned the mud and chalk off them. "Look, Stig," he said, "you could make arrows out of these. Or perhaps they're a bit thick." But Stig was not listening. He was looking up the track at the animal, the size of a dog, with reddish fur, sharp ears, and very bright eyes, calmly walking towards them with its tongue hanging out. Barney's heart missed a beat. He got slowly to his feet, gripping his spear. "Fox!" he hissed. "That's it, Stig! It really is. It's a fox. And he levelled his hunting spear at the fox, and he wished he had the bow and arrows, but perhaps he could spear it. Stig, he breathed. Come on, now's your chance. But this time, Stig did not raise his bow. Instead, he took hold of the end of Barney's spear and held it so that even he could not throw it. The fox strolled calmly up to their feet, gave Stig a glance, and vanished down a hole. Barney nearly burst into tears of rage. But Stig, why did you let him go? He stormed. You're supposed to kill foxes. That's what hunting's for. That's why we came. But Stig grinned in a rather superior way, and he pointed down the hole after the fox, acted a little pantomime as if he was eating, and screwed up his face as if he was tasting a bad taste. He made it quite clear that he thought Barney was mistaken in wanting to kill something you couldn't eat. And we're going to leave it there, Year 3. What I'd like you to do now is I'd like to have a read of what we're going to be doing next and then watch the next video. Okay, see you soon!